And we're live. Welcome to Making Awesome. Season 2, Episode 33. We have the ever-effervescent Jaime Van Kessel with one of my favorite pieces in the background there. IR programmer, I make computer, beep, boop, beep, beep, boop. And if that is not indicative of what we're going to be talking about today, there's going to be lots of beeping and booping, lots of ones and zeros. Jaime, give us the Backstreet Boys, the who you are, the where you're from, the what you did, and as long as you love me.
Oh, yeah. So, hey, I'm Jaime Van Kessel. I live in a very small town in the Netherlands called Tricht, which is probably a name that none of you can either pronounce because it's probably way too Dutch for that shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of Dutch in that. I'm like,
yeah,
you have a little
so,
saliva to get there, right?
yeah. And it's a deep throat action there. And it's also a small town in the middle of nowhere, really. But it has one redeeming quality, and that's close to Geldermalsen, which is a slightly bigger town in the middle of fucking nowhere. But that is the town that hosts Ultimaker. So, that's why I live there. I've lived in the Netherlands for all my life. And actually, come think of it, I've also worked also for Ultimaker, or at least, a large part of my adult life. Because I started to work at Ultimaker when I started doing my master thesis, and I kind of never left. So here we are.
That's always the fun thing, right? Where you kind of land in something just because you thought it was cool, and then all of a sudden it's now a career.
Yeah, and it was also when I started at Ultimaker, it was also like this cute little company that just barely graduated literally from somebody's, backyard and garage. Because they were just kicked out by one of the founders, or actually they were just doing it in one of the houses of the founders, and then his wife kicked the people out because she was getting a bit tired that people were doing support calls from like their kitchen table, which I can totally understand, right? So
I know this pain.
Yeah,
and so does the better three quarters.
yeah. So and back then we still had, I think back then squatting was still legal in the Netherlands. So what people would generally do is that if you have a vacant building, you would try to rent it out to, what they would call anti-squatting, because, if a house is being used or a building, you couldn't squat in it. So Ultimaker was actually in like an anti-squatter building, and it was like an old farmhouse, and it was leaky as fuck, right? So we regularly had to put pots and pans around and put like, pieces of cloth and towels like in the windows because otherwise it would start leaking. But yeah, we were with like 16 people there, so it was like super cute and tiny when I started like 9.5 years ago. So, and now it's pretty big, right? It's 300 plus people. So, it's a crazy 9.5 years, I can tell you.
Yeah, Cura's certainly grown pretty quickly, as well as Ultimaker. And can you kind of talk about that? Because your background was more on the game dev side, and now you find yourself on the software architecture, software dev side. How did that shift?
Well, they're not that different, right? Because my background was in game development, and then also the technical side of things, right? So originally I went for media technology, which was more of a broader education, where I did my bachelor in, and that also had like broadcasting, audio design, also a bit of theater technology, but also like human computer interaction, design, but also a lot of game development in there.
Right.
And I originally started to do that because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and I wanted a bit more of a broader education to, I don't know, orient myself, I guess. But while doing that, I already had some inklings that I was more of the technical side than of the other things. So I during those 4 years of my bachelor, I sort of, shifted more and more towards the hardcore engineering, the software engineering side of things. And then, I decided to do a master, and I did a master in game and media technology in Utrecht, which is actually a specialization on computer science, right? So it is, hardcore computer science, but then with a focus on games and simulation. And as part of that, I also took a class in computer vision, and that is also what I graduated on at Ultimaker. So I graduated on making a structured light scanner for Ultimaker, and from that, I basically sort of
Wait a minute, where's the structured light scanner?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah,
Ultimaker
it
never
got
made a
canceled.
structured light scanner, did they?
No, well, we developed one. We got to like 95%, and then it got shelved. Yeah,
That happens.
yeah,
Okay. I've been messing around a lot with structured light scanners recently.
yeah,
We have that Artec Eva that is just,
yeah,
it's like, I'm just gonna scan everything because I can. So
yeah.
it is a little bit different. So what drew you to Ultimaker in the beginning? Because like you said, they were just kind of out of a house. So why them and not somebody else? Is it just because they were local?
Yeah. So I was actually living in Geldermalsen with my parents. Because Utrecht is the nearest big city for us, and it was 20 minutes by train. And as a Dutch student, you actually get free public transport. So then it was a really easy decision to not go to a dorm or rent a room somewhere, because it's 20 minutes. And let's be honest, it is a lot easier to stay with your old folks, right? So I had to take the train every time. And then I saw like a tiny piece of paper. I think it was like an A4 paper, and it said Ultimaker that way. And I think like the day before or like sometime before, I read something about it on Hackaday. I don't even remember what it was, but I just remember my sense of confusion about why is there somebody clearly just printed it out on like a home printer and stuck it to like in the railway station. I was like, why is this here? But I had a train to catch, so and in the train, I was on my phone. I was looking like, what? A 3D printing company? Like, it's a town with like what, maybe 10, 15,000 people.
There's one there. And it turned out to be Ultimaker.
Yeah, and I was like, because in my mind back then, I just saw, all the RepRap projects, and I looked into it, and I was like, yeah, but it's like a lot of work because you have to get all the parts, and then there's so much tuning, and you have to do all the sourcing yourself. And I was like, so in my head, this 3D printing was like still, super high.
There was that massive barrier back then, and no one lied about it. We all kind of knew that, all right, you had to have a certain amount of skill or a certain amount of stupidity to enter this industry.
Yeah, or stubbornness.
I would say prior to 2012.
Yeah.
You kind of had to be a nerd.
This was 2012. So this was 2012. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and in my head, this was still this big, sort of high tech, right? So you needed to be at least, this big in order to be, in order to go on the ride or something. And then I was like, all right, I could use a side job, right? I mean, I could either, work in like a local supermarket and get minimum wage, or I could, because I already have my bachelor degree. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send them an email and say that they can get like a really cheap junior programmer because I just want minimum wage, right? As long as they don't bitch too much about that I can't do full time, I want to work here. So one thing led to another, and then at a certain point it took too long, and I was like, you know what, I don't really need a job, but I do need like a subject for my graduation thesis, because I didn't want to do it with a professor because it would be too academic. So I was like, you know what, let's just do this. And that's how it happened.
So you talked a little bit about RepRap, right? And RepRap was kind of, I mean, it literally was. It was the beginner of what became the open source movement for the 3D printing industry, because specifically the consumer industry. Ultimaker, especially Cura, is open source.
Yeah.
But identity, intellectual property theft has been kind of a hot topic this week, right? With Creality Cloud finally coming to this precipice of there being a bunch of assholes. How does Ultimaker and Cura specifically deal with IP theft problems? Because it's open source, so that must mean there's IP doesn't matter. It's open source, right?
No, actually you need IP in order to be able to enforce open source, right? Because that's what's going on.
We talked about this prior. I fed him that question.
So no worries, but it's still good because a lot of people don't really seem to understand this, right? And that's the thing about like intellectual property. You need intellectual property to be able to enforce something like open source, right? So if you release all your rights, right, then it is a form of open source, right? Because then you're getting really close to the MIT license, which is basically like just leave this up there and just don't bother me with it, which is about as close probably as you can get to public domain without going entirely to public domain.
It's true.
but Cura was launched not even as an Ultimaker product, right? So it was started by David Braam, and who at the time wasn't a software engineer working for Ultimaker. And he started it based off Skyneforge, or
Yep.
Skyneforge, or however you want to pronounce it. So the original version of Cura was also called Skyne, which is probably also why we shouldn't let David name anything. And then, he originally started to improve Skyne because Skyne was super slow, or Skyneforge was super slow, and then he did some tricks and he switched over from Python to PyPy, and that already made it a lot faster. And then, at a certain point, Ultimaker was like, you know what, that's way better than, because I think back then we were still using Replicator G or something. It was a little bit before my time.
Replicator G.
Yeah.
Bringing it way back to the old school.
Yeah. So,
Golly.
yeah, that's how Cura kind of started, right? And so because it started off as a product not from Ultimaker, it is super AGPL. But I think back then, if we would have started it, we would have probably also released it as AGPL.
Mm-hmm.
Because at a certain point, we also, redid the entire interface from Cura, and then we had the choice again, and we purposely chose for a GPL license. And that's also because one of the founders was actually also one of the RepRap core crew, which is Erik de Bruin. So, the roots of Ultimaker are definitely from RepRap.
It's hilarious the way I expect the names to be pronounced and the way you're pronouncing them are distinctly different.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have to say that my pronunciation is correct.
Oh,
so,
no. Look, if there's one thing that I've learned about growing up in the Florida public school system, if I pronounce something wrong, it's just kind of the way that we pronounce it, Florida man is a thing, and we just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it has always been GPL, and GPL effectively means that, yes, you can do a pull request, you can,
pull request is actually for us to pull it in, right? So
is that a push request then?
No. So different like
I'm clearly not a software
providers
architect.
also have different names for it. Yeah, but a pull request is basically, so if you were to make code and then you request us to pull it in, that's, I also found it a bit of a confusing name. So a pull request is the other way around, right? Usually if you forking it is splitting it off from the main code.
And that's what Prusa did with Slick 3R, then Slick 3R Prusa edition, then Prusa Slicer, which we all know and love today. But Cura, Cura's kind of operates a little bit differently in that it's basically the adopted software of every affordable 3D printer on the market, right? Buy a printer from any weird Chinese named company. It is going to come with some crazily outdated version of Cura with their skin on it that doesn't make any sense.
But they have to make that skin open source. And that has happened multiple times where they didn't, or that they had really, in most cases that, Ultimaker did send a number of very threatening letters to some people saying like, hey, you need to make it open source. And I've sent a few of those because, for a significant amount of time, I was responsible for these kind of things with Ultimaker because, not that I was good at intellectual property, but I was the best. And that's, how startups go.
And we had to send a bunch of threatening letters. If you were the guy that knows the most about something, you are now the subject matter expert in the startup.
Exactly. And the ironic thing about it is that you also tend to stay for a very long time because it's also a very, although expensive, but it is a very quick way to get this experience, right?
It's true. Yeah.
It's a crucible.
It's something that we found is that, when I look at a lot of engineering companies or companies that do what we do, our turnover rate is nothing compared to what theirs are because startup life is a little bit more fun. It's more flexible for people. And yes, we are hiring. Yeah, I worked a little call to action in there, hiring for CAD and marketing right now and sales, because why the hell not? Everyone needs more money. But so this new Cura 5.0, right, is one, came out way faster than Simplify 3D 5.0. I would love.
Hey.
We rant. Can you rant about that again, or are we not throwing? That
Oh
kind of
yeah.
shade
So
here?
no. Well,
how many revisions have you had since?
When was it?
It was
I don't know.
18
I don't
months
even
ago
remember.
or 19 months ago now.
It's 19 months ago. So you divide that by 2, and then you got the number.
Or no, you
Wasn't
guys
it
have
more?
no. It's 3 years.
Wasn't
It was 3
3
years
years? So,
since Simplified 3D has had an update. I
so
think.
we do one every 2 months.
Someone figure
So
out when the last update for Simplified 3D came out and put it in the chat.
I think it's 8. I think if it's 3 years, it means that we will have released 18 versions of Cura by that point.
So why are we
Sorry,
all
and it's
spending money
18
on Simplified
versions,
3D?
right? That's without counting patch releases, I might add.
And so
Yeah.
why are we spending money on Simplified 3D?
I don't know.
Exactly. And I will tell you, out of all the videos that we do,
Yeah.
when we talk about support material, what do you think is the biggest comment that I get?
Well, I know which is the biggest one because I'm also on GitHub, right? And I'm also on Facebook. And I'm also on Reddit. And I'm also on Twitter, and yeah, I get it. People want manual supports, but it's not up to me to decide that. And I get that they're better, but I do have the feeling that the need or the desire for them is a bit overinflated in a certain sense. I'm not saying it's not important, but I also know how much work it would be and what sort of or I think I know what the impact is because I don't really know, of course. And if I put this two together, I think we made a better decision in going for, the new slicing of Arachne versus manual support, right? Because we could have spent the same time doing that. And I think this is the better choice, right?
We did get a number. June of 2019 was the last revision of Simplify 3D. So yeah. It's been a bit. And I'll tell you, the last time I've ever used Cura's tree supports. Now, do you watch the channel at all or no? If you don't, that's totally
fine. I've not watched it. No.
We lit a printer on fire a couple of weeks ago as a means to show what happens for thermal runaway. I had to assist it a little bit. It was too breezy. The wind itself was cooling the printer down. That printer, the Wanhao i3, was the last time I ever used Cura tree supports because my needs at the time were changing and those printers sucked for tree supports. So I never used it again. And we are planning a tree supports versus the world video where we do look to see how does it compare to Prusa Slicer's stock supports. I don't want to use my tuned profiles. I want to use bone stock everything on Prusas because I have a bunch of those and I can put 3 printers next to each other, run the exact same files and time lapse them all at the same time. But I will say that is the big feature that so many people talk about.
Yeah.
Now I bet they're going to be talking about this new Arcane engine.
I hope so, because if they don't, it means that we've been wrong and we spend almost, well, it wasn't like 2 years full time, but I think the entire sort of road towards this change has been in the ballpark of 2 years.
Wow.
So
what is that like then, working on something behind the scenes while you're watching revisions that kind of suck compared to what you're going to be releasing?
It's not suck, right? Because that's also the problem from almost starting from scratch, is that in the beginning you're making things and then you reach a point where it's still a lot like super worse than it is. And then you just have to constantly convince yourself that but I know if I continue doing this, it will be better, right? Because you have to stop doing it the old way.
Right.
And then redo all of that, right? So where all of those, the band-aids and the bug fixes and the stability, but it is at sort of it's end of life, right? So
this is like a fork, if you will, right?
It's more than that. We gutted it. Right? That's what we did.
Interesting.
Like we gutted the engine and had to redo large parts of it. And of course, the first versions that we had were much worse than the original. And I think right now we're at a point where it's comparable or better. And at least for the Ultimaker machines, it's better because, of course, there we have an entire team of people. And it's like in the ballpark of like 4 people whose main job it is to just make profiles. For Arachne, it was like four people that were working on that, right? So it's their job basically to make sure that the profiles are good. And even they still have like a backlog with us saying like, but we actually would have wanted these things also to be included in the 5.0 release. And we have to tell them like, sorry, there's a deadline. It's the deadline or your features, right?
this leads me into a comment from the community. We were going to wait for those for a little bit, but this one specifically leads in perfectly here. This is from Jamie Smith on our YouTube community post about this. They said, why haven't they fixed fast printing for other printers besides their own, right? I guess Chuck Hellebuck has been talking about fast printing. I know you and Chuck kind of got into it there a little bit.
Yeah.
But why hasn't Cura and Ultimaker decided to make fast profiles for everyone? Why are you guys being a bunch of assholes?
Well, first and foremost, we have 200 printers. So we have 200 printer definitions. So there's no way in hell that Ultimaker at its current size. So because right now every release, right, we have multiple stages of testing where it goes through, right? And the last stage it goes through is system testing, and then a number of prints are done. And we're already starting to notice the burden of having like a large scale of printers ourselves, right? Because every printer you add, it's slightly different.
One
it has
extra level of complexity.
It's just an extra set of tests that you need to run. If we were to do this for like 200 printers, I don't think there's enough people in Ultimaker, right? So then we're not talking about the software department. We're talking about all 300 employees would then need to do this.
Yeah.
And then we would not be making any printers. We would just be doing, making profiles for Chinese brands.
And free software that doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah. So, that's just simply put, that's the reason we do it. And Creality is, I have no idea how many printers they sell, but say that
they don't know how many printers they sell either.
Probably, but I think it's fair to say that they are at least in the ballpark of revenue as Ultimaker. So they could also spare a few software engineers or any kind of engineer really to do pull requests. I would love to work with them, and I would love to merge these things. And because I've also had these chats with Cheb, right? I mean, I went into the discussion with him like, hey, I understand what you're trying to say. I understand what you're trying to do, but this is a better way of doing it, because that was what the entire discussion was about. And I'm not, right? I am doing that in my own time because I really want 3D printing to be better. Of course, I will always have a disposition towards Ultimaker because, my mortgage is not paying itself.
Yeah, they pay the bills. Yeah,
and I'm very grateful for the amount of money that they're putting into Cura, right? Because it's a 6-developer team. There's a designer. There's, we actually even hired a community manager, and it's her entire job essentially to, answer questions about Cura, to talk to people, to register all the feature requests. And hardly, at least, a number of these people are full-time being paid by Ultimaker without any, clear or direct benefit.
Yeah, it's a loss.
Of course, in the long run, there is one. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Ultimaker is still a company, and I'm glad Ultimaker is doing it, but it's a lot of money that we're talking about.
And
we have to draw the line somewhere.
There is, of course, the paid version of Cura that exists, right? If you want to get premium support and a few extra things, you can pay for Cura, and I would assume that goes directly to the development of Cura. And I guess it upsets me when people ask questions like, why haven't they fixed fast printing for other printers besides their own? It's literally because they're not being paid to, right? It baffles my mind that people in the industry believe that just because it's under the Ultimaker brand, that means you're going to care first and foremost about any other company other than Ultimaker.
Yeah,
right? Who pays the damn bills?
It's a discussion also, it's a talk that I've had also often with Gina from Octoprint, because we occasionally use each other to rant to one another about like, if somebody is being unreasonable again. And I'm not saying that there's a lot of people being unreasonable in the community, but it's just because the community is so big, right? We literally have, I don't know, like 1 million users or something. If like 0.1% is being an asshole about it, that's still a lot of people.
Yep.
So occasionally, we vent towards each other. And she also has like a number of very good talks about this, where she's also talking because, her position is worse than mine because she's doing it alone. Of course, you can't deny she's a woman, so that probably will also add a bit of flack because, female software engineer, people are going to be more of an asshole against against that,
Yep.
even though it's totally fucking unwarranted, and especially to Gina because she's an amazing software engineer.
Wait, that Gina or a different Gina?
Gina from Octoprint, yeah.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to have her on the podcast, but I'm like, I don't know if we're big enough to ask Gina. She's like the queen of
Well, you could
programming in
try.
this industry.
I don't know. You could try. I mean,
she's pretty busy these days, right?
I wouldn't know, but you could try, right? But she has a lot of really good talks about, what goes wrong there, and I think it's mostly this sort of the sense of entitlement. If we produce something open source, the analogy that I personally use is the apple pie one, and it's basically I like making apple pie, and I've got some spare apple pie, and I put it out at my lawn, and I put a sign there, and I say free apple pie. It's totally okay if you come over to my house and say, hey, man, I taste your apple pie. And my grandma used to put insert random ingredient in it, and that was really fucking nice. Maybe you should try that. That's a good thing to say to me. Or say like, hey, man, you left the apple pie out way too long, and now it has mold on it. Maybe you want to remove that in case somebody gets sick. All of that is good feedback.
Yep.
But if you call my house at that point, and the first thing you say is that I suck for not making cherry pie, it's not me that's the problem here.
Yeah,
you could kindly ask me, have you ever considered making cherry pie? But I don't owe you shit.
I have to agree here, right? It's trying to be the armchair coder. Of course, a lot of coders kind of work from armchairs, but ignore that. You know where
I don't think a lot of coders do this, because I think a lot of coders know what it's like to also be in the other side of it. Yep. It's usually people who do say it, and then I've used this one before, but it's a good joke, so I'm going to repeat it again. It's usually the people that start sentences with, I've been a software engineer for, and then they insert a time that's usually longer than 10 years. And I feel that's like the same as saying, I'm not racist, but.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that sentence is never good.
Nope.
And it never proves the third part of the sentence.
Nope. Yeah. No, I totally agree with this. We had I don't know who said it. We got quite a few comments, but what do you mean you won't support my brand new closed source 3D printer with perfect profiles? Of course they're not going to do that. Not all open source software is both free as in beer and free as in Libre. Okay, so what are some of these magical secrets that are hidden throughout Cura? Not necessarily just in the 5.0, but what are some of these magical secrets?
We only have 2 hours, Cura? Man.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Give me your top 3.
Oh, yeah, things that people don't know about.
For me, it was all the add-ons.
Yeah, so plugins, because I even have 2 plugins, right? So I have 2 plugins on the marketplace as well. One of them is the Barbarian plugin, which basically it scales models by 25.4. Because people kept on bitching about that we should also support standard, and I was like, I'm sorry, we already support standard. It's called metric. And then people got very upset with me. But in all honesty, I honestly didn't know that a lot of American people called Imperial standard, and I've honestly thought that person was taking the piss out of me. So at a certain point, basically to sort of kind of get back at them, I released the Barbarian plugin to act as a convenience.
I loved it. I even covered it in our plugin rundown, and I said I like the cut of your jib. Or you could have called it anything. You went for Barbarian plugin because of the bullshit that you guys get.
But I also like the first person that started, I was like, all right, I'm gonna build it, but I at least get to ridicule you. And I didn't even know who that was, but that person went like, yeah, fair enough. That's fair.
Simple Electronics says if you do the Konami code at the home screen of Cura, you get to play a round of Tetris. Is that true?
Well, unless some of my colleagues managed to sneak that in, I don't think so. But they could.
You might be getting trolled.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure. Yeah. I mean, it's not there. We used to have this really cool thing, and I was really upset that we were forced to remove it. And that is when Cura crashed, we would show a picture of a kitten. So at a certain point, we found this API that you can pull, and it would send you a random picture of a cute kitten. And we were like, that's fucking gold, right? So what we would do is every time it would crash, and back then we didn't have like an automatic crash reporter, so it would just ask people like, hey, copy this and go over to GitHub and post it there, right? So we were like, all right, so not a lot of people are doing that. So we need to convince people to start, doing that, right?
Right.
So we were like, all right, you know what? Let's try to give them a reward, right? So we were like, hey, here's a picture of a kitten to help you recover from the shock. Please give this to us. And it actually helped. But yeah, at a certain point, somebody from marketing got really upset that it wasn't professional. And we had to remove
my
it.
cat's the director of my marketing and director of my HR department.
Yeah.
So, and it's like on our website, and people are like, well, that's unprofessional. I said, well, then you're not a great customer for us. Then if that bothers you,
that was my response as well, but it's not up to me.
I'm the owner. I get to make those decisions.
But we do have Easter eggs, and one of my colleagues, Terry, already said it in the chat. We do have an Easter egg, and it's pirate related, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Okay, Terry. I didn't realize Terry was a colleague. I responded to Terry that Cura is always going to be free.
Yeah.
Okay,
no worries.
so you are kind of on somewhat of a good behavior then, because you've got coworkers watching here.
Well, I think most of them know me already, so
That's fair. That's fair.
But I saw multiple people as well, even Cura developers, by the way.
What is your favorite part of Cura?
Oh no, that's like asking a parent what their favorite kid is. That's like cruel, man. That's cruel. Like, I've been working on Cura for so long. It is my baby by now. Even if I didn't start it, it's like, I've been fostering it for so long. I've been involved as a developer with it for so long. All of it, even the horrible parts that I hate, are dear to me. But at least going for easy score here, Arachne is fucking amazing, right? That entire way of slicing, it is fundamentally new. It is new to the world. Like, really, nobody ever did this. Like, somebody from Ultimaker literally got his PhD, and this was like the part of the work he did to get his PhD.
Can you talk about Arcane and what makes it so special?
Yeah, so it like, there's been also a lot of YouTube videos about it that really show well why it works, and I definitely recommend just looking at those, because they have pictures and are probably better able to show what the differences are, and probably also better than explaining it. But the fundamental difference is what like the old Cura does, and also what essentially all the other slicers do, is that they work in a destructive way. So instead of planning ahead where the walls need to be, they just they use insetting and offsetting, right? So you take a shape and you inset it by a certain amount, and then the area that you inset it, that's where you need to put walls, right? But it always means that you can't undo your decisions. You can't go back on a decision when you figure out that it didn't quite turn out the way that you wanted it. So you always have to use the outer and the inner walls. They have to have the same thickness, or of course, the outer walls and the inner walls can have a different one, but it needs to be a predefined setting. You can't do that sort of on the fly or on demand. And then you generally, have this area left over, and then you have to do gap filling in that. Right. And that's what Cura did. That's what, all the slicers are already doing right now. With Arachne, instead of going...
It's Arachne. I haven't mispronounced
it. Arachne. Sorry. Yeah,
Arachne,
it's like the spider.
Arcane, sorry.
It's the spider.
Arachne, spider. Got it.
Because originally, like, some of the drawings that Tim Kuipers is also the guy who invented this algorithm, and he got his doctorate degree. I think it was last week, by the way. So
no kidding. Congratulations on that.
Yeah. And the main difference in that sense is that instead of working outside in, we started working inside out. So we make a skeleton first, and then we create areas, and then we figure out how many beads we can fit in there. And then at a certain point, you've got areas where you have transitions from one set of beads to another set of beads, and then we have to make transitions. And that's the moment where we can start making decisions. But because instead of doing the cutting, we first start doing some planning, we can, do relaxation algorithms and all that kind of stuff to figure out what we can still do. And that's why we move the moment where we really need to make a decision as far away as possible,
right?
So that you can still backpedal on them, really.
This is common in subtractive manufacturing, where you have a look ahead. And the CAM processor that is feeding the G code to your machine is looking ahead, seeing, all right, what the hell's coming up here? Because we need to plan for these movements before we get there. We don't want to hit a corner with a meter per second square of acceleration.
That's on your firmware level, right? That's not on the planning level. Right, so we're also looking into those kinds of things, of course. But
where you can integrate Arachne into firmware?
No. But basically, so this motion planning, like, so ahead and then feed forwarding, and then taking into account on where do you need to stop a certain movement, and etc., etc. But that's more of, we see that more as motion planning and more on the firmware level. Of course, a part of that is also in Cura, in case you have a more stupid machine. And it's always a bit tricky on where does that responsibility live, and that's also, I think, a big part of being a good software engineer and an architect is figuring out whose responsibility is what on a technical level, and there's never a fully clear answer to that, and sometimes it also gets really muddy because of legacy. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. We have some comments or some questions from the comments. The Flying Master Chef says, howdy all, got 5.0 yesterday and hope they talk about some of the issues. Mine has crashed 6 times already and I don't see where to tell them.
On GitHub. That's where you got it from. In the post there, it tells you what to do. But basically, if you go to the Cura GitHub, you press issues, and then there's like a nice list of things that you can select from. And there's a template there that also guides you through, all the information that we need. And really, we don't ask all of those things because we're mean assholes that just want a lot of information. Please fill all of it in. Because otherwise my colleague, our community manager, Fenne, has to hunt you down and try to get all the information.
I'm going to submit
we're
a
not
bug
psychics,
report that
really,
just says
we need that
crashed.
info.
I'm just going to submit a bug report that says it crashed. That's it. Nothing else.
Yeah, please don't.
No.
That just wastes our time.
Yep.
Because I'm fully willing to believe that it crashed. I believe you. Right?
It's
it can happen.
Beta for a reason.
No, but even in a full version, right? I mean, any software can and will crash. In the same sense is that there's no such thing as completely safe software. It doesn't happen. It's never. Any software more than Hello World is complicated enough that I guarantee you will have bugs. But give us the logs. Tell us, what, your operating system, your CPU, all that kind of stuff. If you have it, we'll get back to you, and we're going to do our best to figure out what it is. Right.
Flying Master Chef is also asking, I've asked about the live view several times and never got a reply. I'd at least be okay if they said they will never have the feature or they are working on it. I'm guessing that's live G code as it prints.
Yeah, I don't know if he has the same nickname on GitHub or not. I don't remember it, but I see a lot of people. I do know that it's been requested a number of times before. We're probably not going to get it because it's mostly for people that are using USB printing and then to stream it.
It requires a lot of extra horsepower.
That too, and it adds all kinds of reliability, and like USB printing, we're not really supporting it. So the USB printing in Cura, it's not good. But yeah, that live view, I get it. I totally understand it. But cool, I don't think we're going to get it.
Yeah.
It would be a lot of work. And I see how some people would benefit from it. But unfortunately, we have to do this thing that we call triage. And, we stole that from, medics in combat situations, right? And if we just have to, look at how much resources does it take, how many people will benefit. And then, unfortunately, we're gonna put extra emphasis on if the answer to that is a lot of Ultimaker users.
I'm gonna put a poll up in the chat right now. We have a few people watching because
Yeah.
we got a lot of people saying Arcane is pretty good too. So I want to see if they like Arcane or Arachne better.
Well, I already saw at least 5 of my colleagues in there, and all of them are voting on Arcane. So,
well, I don't know if they're just being chaotic.
I think so. I think at this point they're trolling already, but that's fine. That's fine.
But okay, so we have John Stern wanting to know, what do you think about potential AI for slicers? It's not clear to them how to generate the training set, but what are your thoughts regarding that?
Well, I don't think it's slicer only, right? So, because it would be slicer printer combination, right? Because, you know, in a general sense, AI, and of course, you know, if I'm not talking to a manager, it's not AI, but machine learning. And if I'm talking to people who you know, are in charge of money or managers, then I will tell them that it's machine learning or it's artificial intelligence, because, you know, it's more funds you get for it. Nobody likes machine learning. Everybody likes AI, right?
Yeah, I mean, AI's got all the fancy buzzwords, right?
Yeah, but essentially it's the same thing.
Are you also going to integrate the blockchain?
Whoa, no. We had people ask us that, but no. So I think it would be possible to get some kind of training data, but it would also be very printer dependent, right? Because the reason that you're doing all of this is basically to come from a 3D model, an ID, towards a physical object.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing you're then trying to optimize. Because optimizing a G-code doesn't make any sense. I don't think you could do it on a G-code level, so that would mean that you need to do it on a printer level, or at least on a G-code level, and then put it in a virtual simulated printer,
right?
But then you're also partially figuring out how well your simulation is.
And so if the print fails, do you consider that a good training exercise, or do you have to remove that? Like, there's so much there of training in AI. The 3D,
but there is a future there. I am convinced that there is a future, both in the simulation, in there, because, you know, it's also like on slicing, or that it can suggest certain things, or already identify certain mistakes or impossibilities. Because in an ideal world, a bit of CAM software, which is what Cura is, would you just tell him what you want, right? Because right now you're talking to Cura and you say, I want all these settings. So you're basically telling Cura how you want Cura to do something, which is totally understandable because we're not there yet. But in an ideal world, you would just tell the software, this is what I want, and you figure out how to do that. And then maybe the software can tell you, I really can't do what you're asking of me. You need to let go of this constraint.
Yeah.
But in an ideal world, that's where we would be, right? I hope that we can move towards that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, John Stern is getting into things I don't understand, but he's saying a DNN-based system could incorporate some physics-based inputs, training off FEA simulations for support, strength, etc.
You could.
I don't know what that means. I know what FEA is, but I don't know what a DNN is. I'm sure it's a cool way to do it. I've also like to point out that the people in chat right now are the worst amount of chaotic good. The poll is exactly 50-50.
Nice.
And I think people are switching their votes around to keep it at a 50-50 because that's just the way the way this industry goes. So have you seen the 3D Q guys? QUE? 3D QUE?
Yeah.
That deep neural network DNN. Okay. That would be amazing to be integrated into like a slicer with an AI system into it, or DNN.
The biggest problem, of course, with any neural network is garbage in is garbage out.
Right.
So getting the training data, because then if it's your training data, and then, you know, is it the printer? Like, are you making a neural network on a single printer? Because of course are we already at a point where the difference between two printers is small enough that you can do it, or between two sets of materials? I'm not entirely sure.
I have to agree with you.
That being said, I do think also that AI and machine learning, or, you know, whatever stream of people, because some people say there is no AI, there's only machine learning, and of course, as John Stern also said, you know, this is the difference that some people handle. a lot of it is also often shooting with a cannon at something that is way too small to shoot at with a cannon. If you look at it like, the major improvements that we managed to make with, Arachne/Arcane, because apparently that's what we're calling
Well,
it
it's
now.
56% Arachne, so
Okay, so
you got
sorry,
it.
it's
It's
Arachne. Okay, whoa, it's Arachne again.
16 votes, so that means
All right.
only it was 10 versus what is that?
Yeah.
8
All right,
versus
so Arachne
6.
then. I think that we spend our time on that well, right? We could have spent the same amount of time on AI, and I don't think we would have gotten the same improvement. But at a certain point, I think we're gonna reach the point where, of course, we've done all the other things. And then, the amount of effort that we have to put into one of the other fields to get it better is gonna be higher than AI. Yeah.
Right. And so Lars, I don't know Lars's last, I don't know how to say it, but it's Lars de Jong, maybe?
Lars
Can you
Jong,
ask
I assume?
Jongh? I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
Can you ask Jaime what could be next for Cura after such a big update?
A break.
That is the best possible freaking answer.
I look, it was touch and go for us, the 21st. It was, I think, the most stressful release for me and the entire team. And probably like a more traditional or maybe even experienced software architect would have probably said, if we're still fucking around so short before the deadline, and probably product owner as well, it would have been the smart move to say, you know what, let's just stop doing this because it's way too much risk.
Right.
But we didn't. Right. And that gamble, which is what it is, paid off. But it was a big drain on all of us. Like, there have been moments where I was doubting whether or not we could get it done. And that would have meant that we had to make, because we also updated Qt, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted that update because, it provides support for the M1 all of the sudden, or at least, it runs properly there. It's a whole lot faster, etc. And that's also why right now you can't see all the plugins because of the API break that I introduced.
Yep.
But if we could not have done that for the 5.0 release, we would not have had a major SDK break on a 5.0 release. We would have had to do it on a 5.1 release. And it's already a hard thing to explain to everybody that we had to do that on a 5.0 release.
Right.
And would it have been okay if it was 2 months later? Sure, it would be, but it wouldn't have felt all that right? It would have been a sort of a moral
You've had your
loss.
Plan, and your plan has now changed, and that is a little bit different. I totally understand that. Okay, and so we have a few YouTubers out there that have already put videos out. Lost in Tech did one, Chep did one. We are going to do one, but it's probably going to be in 2 weeks because Wednesday's video is shot, edited, and ready to go. So, nope, not happening. I'm not doing another video. But I guess, what are you hoping that these videos are going to bring in a lot more beta users, or do you want kind of the inexperienced users to hold off for now, right?
No, I want old users, right? And because I have a funny story about this as to why. At a certain point, we had a beta release, right? And we have these two parts of Cura, right, in the setting list, right? So we have this sort of this recommended and the custom, right?
Right.
And of course, more experienced users are gonna use the custom over the recommended, right? So we put a beta out. And nowhere in the beta did we get any bug reports regarding that window. We do a release, and the bug reports start flooding in that apparently there was something wrong in the recommended screen. And nobody in the beta saw this because all the beta people were advanced users. They never even saw the recommended screen, right? So in any beta, it's a bit like with a brainstorm. You need a really good, you need a nice spread, a nice sample of your actual user base. And that should be as representative as possible. And of course, it's always going to be a bit skewed, right? Because there's a certain type of people that like bleeding edge.
Mm-hmm.
However, don't let your perceived lack of knowledge get in the way of downloading a beta. Actually, you're the rare person who's going to do that. And I'm sorry, experienced users who are using the beta, you are very valuable. But those inexperienced people are actually a bit more valuable because we're not often getting those bug reports. And that means that we get those results later, and then we have to do patch releases and etc. And nobody likes a patch release. Like, us developers don't like it. And of course, the people as well, because it also gives off this sense of instability, right? Oh, you had to do a patch release. Oh, isn't your QA team doing its job? Which is not true, right? I mean, our QA team is doing a good job, but good quality control does not guarantee that we will fix or find everything, right? It will just diminish the mistakes that will make it out in the wild, and that's also why a beta is so important, right?
Can you talk about the beta, the betas that you guys do? Are you doing open betas? You doing closed betas? What are your expectations from beta testers?
Well, we do closed betas, but that's often like right before we're launching new machines, right? And then we just don't want to share that with everyone just yet.
Hardware betas, yeah.
And I've also been with Ultimaker for a long time, and it's also been in discussion that reared up a few times, and I have always defended, and I've had to defend it a number of times, whether or not we should have an open beta. And I'm very happy that that's one of the fights that I won, that we always have an open beta, always. And I also think that we get a lot of people, of course, testing it because we're open source, right? And so even if they're testing things that are not, they're not testing it all in Ultimaker, right? There's a lot of shared components in there.
Yep.
So, at least there's a lot of overlap, and those things will be tested by those people. And that benefits everybody, like not just me, not just, the people doing it, everyone.
It's true, right? Open beta is amazing in that it lets anyone of any skill set get into it. But you do have to know how to use GitHub, right? Because you have to download the beta from GitHub.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest factor that keeps some newbies out of it. As a newbie of GitHub, it has one of the worst UIs that I've seen, or at least a UI on the UX side. It's like, I just want to download something. Where's my download button? Don't make me right-click something, Git. I don't understand this shit.
But with the issues, it was also like we were also in a beta program for that, because originally we could only do templates, but then the templates wouldn't actually become fields in your browser.
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, Gina was invited to that, and then she mentioned it to me, and my response was something like, all right, so where do I sign in blood for that? And then she got us also into the beta program, so we also tested that feature. And now that's also something that we have in Cura, so that it actually shows you fields, and then we can say this field is mandatory, and and that has already improved the quality of our bug reports so much.
Good.
It's still people not always filling it in quite well, but it improved quite a lot. Yeah.
Is there any concern from the software dev side that other slicers, and I'm going to use Prusa Slicer here because they're another open source slicer, are just going to immediately integrate Arachne without any work done to it? They're just going to steal the hard work. I mean, yes, they'll put the licensing and all of that.
Yeah.
Is that a worry to you guys, or are you looking forward to when that occurs?
I personally am looking forward to it. And I also know how much time we spent on it, right? So, of course, the amount of work that, and then that's mostly the work, of course, that Tim did on it, the pure novel, thinking of this algorithm, that's now the work that we've done for them, right? But that would have also happened on the grace that he published the paper on it, right? You can look up the paper. It has the information, at least the theoretical information on what you need to do to implement it, right? But I know how much effort we put into it. I know how complicated it is. I know how many things we had to change. I know how many hours, days, months of our life we put into this. I hope others will do it, but I also know how much work it is, and it's a lot of work. So it's a lot of work.
If there are people that want to basically fork with it, learn it, and then can somehow make it better, Is that all just done via GitHub? Again, this is a non-software dev question because I don't understand how
So,
it works.
And this is also, I think, also a nice point also to point at a bit of a misconception that people tend to have is that the only way that you can help an open source project, an open source software project, is that you're software engineer. I think that's sort of the most obvious way that you can help out, right? But it's not the only way, right? So writing good bug reports helps us immensely, right? Figuring out, if you can figure out where the bug came from, and you said, hey, I'm pretty sure it lives over here. All you guys got to do is change this. Hey, that means that we don't have to do it anymore. Or testing it on multiple machines, but also just suggestions as to, hey, this bit of the interface has always confused me. Here's a mock-up of how I would have done this. What do you think? And it often doesn't mean that we're going to do it, but no work is ever done in isolation, right?
Right.
So I often send those things to our designers and go like, hey, somebody had a suggestion.
It ain't bad.
Sounds good to me. What do you think? And then, often that also inspires them to make better, better software. So even if you're not a software engineer, there's definitely can help. Or just if somebody asks a question that is abundantly not a bug, and then if people already answer that, it also means that, our community manager has to do less. And it means that she can spend more time on, the other things where her input is needed more, right? So even just talking to these people and saying like, hey, I don't think it's really a bug, or it's a duplicate of something else, all that work, basically basically what I'm saying is like all the work that other people do means that it's work that we don't have to do. And if it's work that we don't have to do, it means that we're going to spend the same amount of time of work on it. So if we don't have to do those things, we're going to do, the software engineering things, if those are the things that you can't do. So
I'm writing down my opener for this video. Yeah. I'm saying this entire software is one big bug. More so in Arachnid. Let's talk about Cura 5.0 with Arachne.
Nice.
I think that's gonna be the opening, because it's gonna like instantly give all of the software devs a heart attack.
Yeah. Oh, you are a cruel man. Calm down there, Satan.
Hey, look, I've
hey,
kind of
clickbait's work, right? Yeah.
Well, that's not a clickbait. That's not incorrect.
The clickbait is also technically correct, right?
Someone defined this earlier.
It's
clickbait is where you're clicking a video because you're expecting to see something and it's not there.
Oh, right.
That's going to be literally my intro to the video. So the clickbait would be Cura 5.0 is full of bugs with a spider emoji. That would be like a clickbaity thing. Well, while it is kind of full of bugs, I'm certainly not qualified to talk about them. I see. Yep. I was gonna say, I know people are gonna call me out that technically a spider is not a bug. It's an arachnid. I get it. I know it would be how many times have I done intros to videos where I'm very clearly like, how many times the past month
these are my
have I done
trolling
videos
me
where I'm
as
flipping
well.
off the camera, right?
but have you seen also the showcase video from Ultimaker?
Yes.
So that person who's doing most of the talking was Mariska. So yeah.
Oh, so I'm being currently judged. Got it.
Yeah.
So what does it feel like to see what has been your baby for the past couple of years, and the team's baby finally out in the public, and then hopefully soon in a stable release?
Yeah, it's scary as fuck. Right? Because it has all of this potential to be so much better, right? But I think with the old Cura, we were reaching the limits of we were hitting the diminishing returns, like the amount of work that we had to do in squeezing those last bits in the improvements out there. So at a certain point, it also gets to this waterbed problem, right? If you press somewhere and then somewhere else, bubble comes up, and then
70s.
Yeah, you're just trying to sort of optimize that, and at a certain point, you just realize, you know what, I can just keep going on with the current status quo and maybe get a bit ahead of that, or I can take I don't know, sort of the leap into the big unknown and redo everything. And that's, of course, what Arachne is. And I think that in the end, Arachne is going to be better. But of course, as people already mentioned, is like a lot of, everybody essentially has to redo their profiles. I mean, unless you're on Ultimaker, because we did it for you. And we tried our best to put in sensible defaults for the other printers.
Yeah.
But so I'm always afraid that, of course, people are going to see the new algorithms with, have bugs or not all plugins being updated and profiles not being as updated as they are, and then confuse that with Arachne being bad. And I understand it, right? Because you download a bit of software to do a job, and now it's doing its job worse. But I am, of course, a bit afraid of people, incorrectly seeing the tools bad, because people, I know it's easy to blame the people. Oh, you need to learn the tool again. I know it's not that, right? But that is a bit scary, right? That sort of, then the rep that Cura got for being what it is, and then saying like, oh, but 5.0 is shit, I'm never gonna upgrade, etc., right? Yeah. So yeah, that's also the contribution thing that you could do, right? If you have better settings, by all means, just post an issue on GitHub. Better even make a pull request with changing them.
I could build my own profile for a printer XYZ. No, wait, that's a company. Printer ABC. And say, hey, I've got a pretty good stable profile. Would you guys like to adopt it?
Or I have improvements to it. That's also possible. It happened, like with Creality, for instance. I mean, somebody from the community did it. Creality won't ever do it, but
yeah. What is your? Of course, we've been watching probably one of the worst PR disasters unfold on Twitter in the past few months, and
I'm mostly surprised that the printers catching on fire wasn't the worst PR disaster, but here we are.
Why am I not the only one that remembers that? Or why do I feel like I'm the only one that remembers that when
it
the
was
first
that
Ender
long
3s
ago,
caught
right? It was
fire?
It was the Creality 5, right?
No, well, the original Ender 3, the cables were shit.
But with the 5, it was as well. I think it was actually when after Naomi Wu left, then the company went to shit.
The fire happened. Well, the fires to Ender 3 happened well before Naomi.
But it was also with the Ender 5, if I recall correctly, as well.
I don't remember much about the Ender 5, but there was some time there that I went kind of dark in the industry.
Oh, yeah, it could be.
But why is this what the community decides to get its head wrapped around, the IP side, where quite frankly,
they're right, by the way.
Oh,
they're right to be mad about it.
Yeah.
Because it is horrendous what's going on there, but yeah.
Because you deal so much with open source and GPL, and when companies do this kind of shit that Creality's doing, outside of getting a lawyer to send some threatening letters on nice fancy letterhead, your recourse is relatively limited, especially if the company is specifically only on Chinese servers. But have you been following the Artec versus Creality lawsuit?
I've not followed the lawsuit, but I have noticed this whole the almost to a scraping level of what Creality has been doing.
Well, so you know about the CR Scan Lizard, right? Their 3
scanner. Was that Artec that sued them? Okay.
Artec is they're suing the shit out of them.
I knew that the Lizard that it was removed for patent infringements, but I didn't know that it was Artec suing.
Yeah, it's Artec. The doc gets public, so you can read it. But like they're claiming that Creality poached staff, and those staff brought source code over. Oof. And they are able to detect the source code based on some bugs that exist in it.
We've had that as well. We've had that as well with companies as well, where they were claiming that they weren't using Cura engine, and then we were like, mate, you have the exact same bug.
So do you deliberately leave bugs in for that kind of traceability?
No, we don't. We don't. No, because look, the code is complex enough and the behavior is complex enough that we won't always be able to see, but we'll generally know. But we've sent threatening letters, right? And I personally also think it's less annoying, and both of them are legal, mind you, if you clone Cura and you still call it Cura, right? because then you still acknowledge it. But for instance, what BCN3D is doing, and this is me as a person talking, not as in any form in an employee, right?
I think we
but
should put that
I
there.
personally
This entire thing
find
are your
it,
personal opinions.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, I personally find it very annoying that they copied it, renamed it, and in all of their marketing messages, they're pretending to have made a slicer that can do all kinds of cool things. And I'm like, no, you didn't.
Well, if you can bring some of those questions in a way that I can put them out there, I'm going to be interviewing people from BCN in the next couple of months. So
yeah,
I'll be happy to drop that bombshell. I don't give a shit.
And the point is also, like, it would have been totally okay, of course, if we also saw bug fixes from them, right?
Yeah.
Because with Lulspot, we got bug fixes and actual features, right? So for instance, the G-code reader was actually made by Lulspot that is in Cura right now. And also the image reader that is in there was actually made by Lulspot.
This is old Lulspot. This is not new Lulspot.
No, old Lulspot.
Yeah, I want to be clear because new Lulspot just, they don't, like, my TAS 6 is just not supported. And they still haven't fixed the bug problem in their version of Cura that does not let you update printers via USB 3.
Oh, yeah, but I don't think they even have the staff. We talked to them for a bit.
Yep.
Also, because I also think that we should also have a look at a more universal level of Cura, and maybe we're even like, because right now a lot of people are just copying Cura and then rebranding it. And I figured, hey, why shouldn't we just, I don't know, try to gray label it? But it's not, it's a thing that we're potentially having a look at. I've suggested it a few times, and it usually other things got priority, and I could totally understand that, of course.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Yeah. Omaha 3D Print says I'm probably out $500 on that thing, speaking about the CR Scan Lizard.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen there, because technically, as far as I can tell, most of the claims of that lawsuit are around the software, not only the trademark name of Studio, so it's Creality Studio scanning software. Artech Studio is trademark, so they're going after them for the trademark.
Yeah, but Studio as a name,
they got the trademark from the USPTO.
No, but they got the combination as a trademark
regarding 3D scanning. So
I know, but
3D scanning.
But in the same sense, for instance, Ultimaker, of course, has a trademark specifically on Ultimaker Cura.
Yes.
Right. So Lulspot Cura does not violate the trademark, because a lawyer or a judge will simply look, is it abundantly clear that we're talking about something different? And if it's company name Studio and other company name Studio, and those company names are significantly different, again, not a lawyer, but I did it for a while, I would argue that it would be okay.
I would agree with you on that one, but
if it would have been Ultimaker Cura, all right, you'd get on very shaky grounds, right? Or Cura Ultimaker, you flip them around, right? Or something like that.
Right. And I think a lot of that is we're just going to pile it on, and whatever we can get, we can get. The big thing is the source code. And so
that's just outright stealing it, right? That's not even just...
Well, and here's what's interesting to me, right? Because Creality is based in China, and hilariously, Artech has a Chinese location as well. They've been fairly insulated because IP in China is, as a lot of us know, a suggestion and not the law. But as soon as Creality started doing business with Kickstarter, now they maintain a United States-based nexus. And so Kickstarter is also named in these.
But it doesn't have to, because even if a company is entirely from Creality, you can just get a type of injunction where you can prevent them from selling in another country. So if you would sue them in America, you could basically ask an American judge to order that these devices can no longer be sold in America, which also happened in the Apple versus Samsung or any of those kind of things, right? Or at least they try it. But then you also have to put money in escrow as the party requesting for it. It gets really complicated and difficult.
And as someone that owns Artech scanners, I am not paid by either company as of right now. I am working on relationships with Artech, so I am not currently paid by those companies at this time. I said, well, wait a minute. The CR Scan Lizard is supposed to perform as well as my Artech Eva, which costs 40 times as much. 40 times, from $500 to $20,000. A large difference. And if the CR Scan Lizard can even hold a candle to what it's actually claiming, then
I don't think it will.
Of
I don't
course
think
it's
that
not
they will.
going to. We all know it's not going to.
Yeah.
But they are using structured light for it, which is patented.
Well, that version of structured
Light is patented by Artec, so that's the other claim is going after that structured light. So it'll be interesting to me, but that's been the big IP thing on my radar, because yes, pissing at Creality saying you stole these people's models is one thing. Creality having to answer for IP theft in court where it's public is a much different thing to me. And what do you?
Although I do think it's worse that they steal it from people, because they
it's way worse.
Like the small people, because they are so much less able to defend themselves. I mean, Artec, I have no idea how big they are, but like at least they're a company, right?
Their cheapest scanner's like $7,000, so you can.
Yeah, but okay, but it still doesn't. I still don't know how many they sell a year, right? Because if they sell 20 a year, then they're not really big. I don't know, right? But I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that they have a reasonable budget to actually hire lawyers to.
Oh, they do. Yeah.
To fight people that mess them over. But I think the stealing from the little people is worse, right?
I do too. I fundamentally believe it's worse because the little people can't defend themselves. And then what pissed me off the most is when Creality Cloud went through and blocked all of us that were being rude to them, and they nuked their entire Twitter of all comments. If you look at their Twitter, all the rude comments things were gone. They nuked it all. So we had a block party. All of us that were blocked by them, we're like, oh, we got a block party.
I don't think I'm blocked by them. Right?
All of us got unblocked. They nuked their Twitter. They brought us back, and then they put out a GitHub page where they're showing people what they're removing and when. But see, in removing it, they're still leaving it there. Right, so you can't download the model anymore, but the page still exists.
What?
So I can see what model they removed. So let's say I already downloaded that model. I can now just re-upload it. And then Neil, who does all the little Prusa mate things, Neil. He went through and made an account. God bless him, because I'm never going to do that. I say use 10-minute mail if you're going to do that kind of thing. That's all I got to say about that. Use a burner. And he found that they have literally made piracy easy. They have a direct upload from Thingiverse. You can put in whatever profile you want from Thingiverse, and you just have to click I own it. There is no validation process for doing that, and it just enables you to upload it. And Shane from, I guess it was Shane operating under his own capacity, but a lot of people know that Shane does work for Prusa, but he was operating under his own capacity for this. He kind of dropped the big ball. AgeBiz, Stian, is the one that's kind of been fighting this fight for almost a year now. And finally it got picked up by Shane. And then we picked it up, did a whole video on it. And it has been interesting to kind of see what's going on there. Because I feel like they went into oh shit panic mode because they blocked Naomi Wu. They blocked a lot of people on this. I'm like, you're going to block Naomi? You sure you want to do that? Naomi's the type of person, no offense,
these are
Naomi,
fighting words.
You don't piss off Naomi. She's got a following.
I did that once, and that, we made up, no worries, but it got ugly.
Yeah, it definitely got ugly. We got Danny at 3D Printing DM in here saying, "Hey gents, wanted to say how much I've enjoyed this conversation so much. A few years ago, Jaime gave some corrections to a profile cheat I made a video on, and I wanted to say thanks again." That is the one thing that I love about this industry.
Actually, the funny thing about it is that was actually the cheat that I also got into a fight in a discussion with Cap over.
Oh, see, it just depends on how you.
I wanted to tell him that, hey man, you just found the same cheat, but then the other way around, because the guy from 3D Printing Tabletop wanted to get higher quality, and then Cap wanted to get it faster. And what originally would happen if you set it at 100% infill, it would set all of the layers at top bottom. So it wouldn't print it as infill and it wouldn't use those speeds.
It would print it
And
as
then
top,
quite
bottom, make it look
recently, we
nicer.
changed that behavior for Ultimakers. And that was also the thing that the captain found.
I like that, right? I guess I don't like when creators specifically get pig-headed over I'm right, you're wrong.
Well, I mean, I think it was just a miscommunication in that sense, right? I mean, the wording
Maybe.
could have been a lot better. I also got emotional about it, but
Well,
I
it
mean,
is your baby.
in that sense, stuff got a whole lot better, right? And it was mostly, the main reason I was a bit annoyed about it was also like 100,000 people already saw it, and then, right, it takes so much time to take words back, especially if a lot of people already saw it, right? And that was, I think, the main part.
You can't take it back. You have to make a correction.
Yeah,
right?
and then also because he said, I still don't realize how it worked, and I was like, yeah, man, we're following each other on Twitter, man. We've talked. You could have sent an email, right?
Yeah.
I would have loved to explain this, right? But yeah.
It's fair. I mean, I'm not a big Cura user. I think I've kind of made that clear that I'm a Prusa Slicer fanboy. But now because to me, while Cura has gotten a lot better, its UI is difficult for a beginner.
Yeah.
And I believe the way that it's segmented inside of Prusa Slicer is more beneficial to the beginner user. However, I think now with this new slicing engine of Arachne, that it's about damn time that I, one, give it its fair shot, but two, do the tree supports versus the world, because now there's all this extra benefit that Cura's bringing to the table that
and
other
lightning
slicers don't
infill,
have.
right?
Lightning. Oh, yeah, right. Lightning infill.
That's really cool.
Was that your baby?
No, it wasn't. It was, I think Remco, if I remember correctly, he's in the chat, so he's probably going to tell me if I was right. I think it was Remco and Tim. So they built it during a hackathon.
Mariska is asking what I'm printing today. It's a client project. We work with an individual who makes custom shoes, and they're still in the prototyping stages. So I have to figure out which side it is. That is the midsole. Over here, Grant. It's backwards for me. This is the outer, and the midsection, it has now failed on me 4 times, and I'm pissed at it, so I'm not printing it right now.
Actually, one of the few specs that we had for the S5 printer was that it needed to fit, I think, a size 46 European size shoe. That was, for some reason, we don't even know. I don't even know why that was a requirement, but it was a requirement, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Somebody also asked if we had a relationship with Utrecht University. Well, actually, I am from Utrecht University, so I'm a Utrecht University alumni. And currently, I think four of the software engineers that are working at Cura are actually Utrecht University alumni. And all of us actually did the same master, which is game and media technology. And yeah, but I mean, it has a lot of overlap with Cura, right? So geometric algorithms, working with 3D scenes, and of course, a game engine is really complicated, and it has a lot of similarity with how the front end of Cura works. So it makes a lot of sense. And I'm personally a big fan of internships. There's been periods in Ultimaker where it was really hard for me to get them because people were then afraid that it would, I don't know, draw away attention or something. And I was like, yeah, but like we're not paying them a whole lot. And if you do a little bit of selection, and if the intern is at least okay, then I think you get more than your money's worth. Especially because you can let interns work on the things that are, important, but it's okay if they fail, right? And that's usually where all the exciting new features are, right? Because then you can, send them off into the bushes and go like, you start looking in that direction, but we're building a road in the other direction, right?
We've got a couple of interns coming in this summer that I'm really excited for. And I don't know if it works the same way for you guys, but generally speaking, we hire the interns. It's just kind of the way that it goes, right? If they're If they're
Look,
any good, they get
with
hired.
us. I mean, I'm not going to say that's always the case, but if you said, I ever build a 3D printer myself, it's almost to the point you're hired, right? Because then they would often sheepishly go like, yeah, I built like a wrapper by myself, and then, or I've been printing for the past 2 years with a competitor's printer, and then usually we're like, all right, so you understand what 3D printing is. All right, and you had the balls to admit to us that it was a competitor. Congratulations.
I mean, okay, let's be real here, right? The average individual, especially the average potential intern, is not going to buy an Ultimaker. They're too damn expensive.
No, well, they might have printed on universities, right? But that's probably it. At home, probably not. Right? I mean, we're talking about 2K up. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's also why it kind of bothers me that the industry has gone so suicidal, race to the bottom cheap, because then we look at these fancier printers like an Ultimaker and say, why is it worth this much money? Because these printers can do something similar for quite a bit less. And the answer is because there's development and, people that fix them and people that support them. And yes, while the community is not as
people
big,
that answer your questions if you send a tweet.
people give a shit. John Stern says UU is 150 years older than your country. I said I have clocks older than our country, which I do. I am an amateur horologist, which is not what you think it is. It's clock making. He said, and then he says, I have things in the back of my fridge older than the USA. Yeah, all right. I get it. We're a young country, and I think the USA is in its teenage years, where it just thinks it's right about everything.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, or at the end of the teenage years, I would argue. Right. Yeah.
Oh God, let's hope we're getting close to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to get your opinion on the 3D printing industry in general, because you've clearly used Ultimakers, and I want to ignore the Ultimaker brand for just a second. What is your favorite 3D printer brand that doesn't pay you?
I don't know, because in all honesty, I'll let you in on a secret. You know what I've never done with? I've never printed with another FFF printer but an Ultimaker.
Oh, well, you've been spoiled.
I've never had to. I mean, I have a cheap Anycubic resin printer, and that's the full extent of my 3D printing experience. I mean, oh no, wait, that's not true. I have printed on like a really expensive Stratasys, but that was really frustrating to test prints on.
Oh, and it's expensive as hell.
Oh yeah. And the most annoying part is that when you boot it up from like it's powered down, you have to wait 2 hours
for it to heat up.
Yep. 2 fucking hours. Like that was clearly another printer for me. But yeah, I mean, if we're talking about stuff done for the community, I mean, I'm gonna say Prusa in that sense, right? I mean, I've had my arguments with Joseph Prusa as well, but I and that's okay, right?
Joe's a great guy.
I think it's also good to have a little bit of friction there, right? And especially as of late, the relation between us, as both as companies, I would argue, has also improved a lot. Like we've, loaned or, have done best practice, as it's called, which is, corporate for stealing, each other's stuff, and then did shout outs to that. And I think that's great, right? Because, the arranger algorithm that we have right now is literally theirs.
Really?
They even changed the license for us so that we could use it. And in return, they took things like the fuzzy skin, for instance.
Yeah, I've been playing around with fuzzy skin. We had a couple of projects where actually fuzzy skin was used very lightly in the Wednesday video. We had a video game company reach out to us and say, can you take our main character and bring it to life? And you have 3 weeks to do it.
My condolences, because I know how those models are made, and they are not fucking suited for 3D printing.
Oh, we got no models. We got nothing. We got drawings. We got 2D drawings. And we got it done, and it's at PAX East right now running. So there's a whole story to it. It's really cool. But there's one fuzzy skin part, and we used it specifically to create friction on a mortise and tenon fitment.
Oh, okay.
So
That's a cool use for it.
because you can basically detect how much fuzzy skin's going to add, you make the
Yeah,
fuzzy skin your interference, and you
yeah,
just glide a file on the outside of it till it fits. And because there's all that little extra stuff,
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
grips, but still allows it to be removed. Whereas if you have parts that fit like dead nuts perfect, they're never coming apart. They will effectively friction weld together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
fuzzy
yeah. I've
skin
had
kept that
that
from
more
being a
than once.
problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I am I am excited for what is to come here. And when are when do you think we're going to see, well, the plugins specifically? Like when do you think we're going to start seeing plugins be supported? Of
Well,
course the Barbarian plugin is supported. I wonder how
yeah,
that
yeah,
one
yeah.
was supported at launch. But when do you think we're going to start to see other plugins get supported
Well,
here?
there's already like a field of view who's basically, our main plugin contributor. And he also used to work for Ultimaker. And he's a great guy. Like he develops like the Octopin plugin and the sidebar plugin and the mesh tool plugin and like a gazillion other plugins that I'm not mentioning right now. And he already posted a bunch of models already, or models, beta versions of the plugins on the Ultimaker forum. Because we already warned people like way in front that what kind of changes were going to happen, and of course they didn't have an entire version.
Right.
But although also like regularly contributes bug fixes to our code as well. And he occasionally also even checks our code. So occasionally we could also get like review comments from him if we missed stuff, right? So he also helps keeping us straight, right?
Being
Yeah.
part of the community matters.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, I
what that
fully
comes
agree.
down to.
And of course, I definitely want more people in the community, but it's also never really something that we actively promoted or try to sell. And we probably should start doing that. But I'm primarily an engineer, right? So my core skill set is in engineering. But I think we grew this community to the point where it is by word of mouth. That's super great, but if we put more effort into it, I think it could be even better. I think it could be much better, right? More plugins, more features, or even entire new features being developed, or stuff, I don't know, like universities are building. And then if they were ever able to make a pull request, I would love to accept them, right?
Is there something that you think is missing from the plugins that you'd like to see someone design?
Well, not necessarily in the plugins, but of course, more experimentation with non-planar slicing. I mean, it's
Oh,
super hard, but
yes.
it's exciting. And I've actually thought maybe I actually still have the print. Maybe I should have. Oh, I lost it. I
Non-planar's
used to
been a
have
big deal
a
recently.
non-planar print here somewhere, but I can't find it now. Should have prepared that.
Oh, you're
But
fine.
yeah, I had a print from. Oh, what was his name again? But he showed that to me on a convention where he's actually working with that, right? Trying to get non-planar printing to work. And he basically made this print with like a tower, and then it was like a stair, but then with like the stair parts in it, and
Yep.
he printed that entire thing without support, and it was like overhangs that were like this long, and he did that by non-planar printing. So, and that was amazing.
I would love to see more of it. I'd love to see it get like functionally internally supported. Great example, like ironing. Ironing was something that they got from Cura too, right? Pure slicer pulled ironing.
Well, it's a bit longer story. So originally it came from Nietoko, who originally came up with the basis of the ID, and I think he did it with post-processing scripts in Simplify. And then as part of a hackathon, one of our developers, who's on GitHub by the name of Ghostkeeper, he converted it, or he did it work basically within Cura. And then because in the Ultimaker hackathons, basically it's when employees basically get to decide on their own what project they're working on, and then nobody gets to tell them otherwise. As long as it's beneficial to the company, we get a certain amount of time, and then we can just work on it, and then we have to show it to everybody. And quite a few of those projects actually get merged back into mainline stuff.
Well, I will certainly say that ironing saved our bacon the other day. We have this little tiny thing. It's white, of course, so it's tough to see. But
yeah.
little tiny part, 0.02 of an inch tolerance. So
Oh,
what is that? 0.05. That's 50 microns, I think, is what that comes out to be. And
that's impressive.
XY, it was fine. That really
Yeah.
wasn't that big of a deal.
Uh-huh.
Z was the problem.
Yeah.
Because if you're even slightly over extruding, like
Cura has a
a
setting for that.
percent, it'll get messed up. So
Yeah.
if you're on ironing, nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah, that's actually a thing that I would also like to see, and I don't know if you could be able to do that in a plugin.
It did almost triple the print time, though.
Yeah. If you could do like multi-planar ironing.
That would be amazing to me to see.
Yeah.
Just the top layers, right? So especially on like
so you're done. You're done printing, and then you do something to make the outside layer look better, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I am also excited for this. Right. I would love to see more non-planar. Do you think? Well, you would know this, but are you able to publicly talk about if Cura is going to be supporting in like physically from the slicer side non-planar anytime soon?
Well, not anytime soon. I can say that as well, right? I mean, it's super hard. Do I really want it? Hell yes, but it's gonna be super hard, right? I mean, it's like right now, like we're doing what we call 2.5D, right?
Yeah.
So we slice as early as possible so that we only have to do operations on 2D planes, and that makes it both easier to keep that in your head as actual math-wise, right? Because both are problems right there. Because 3D problems are often really hard to visualize in your head, and in 2D, it's just much easier to do that. So that's also why we've sort of stayed on the 2D level for as long as we did. I do hope that we're ever gonna get there. But we would definitely need help from various universities and stuff like that to get that up and running.
Is that something that you like about Ultimaker, that you guys have this university relationship from UU where you're able
we should
to
definitely cultivate that more. And that's of course not to say that other people are doing their job not correctly, but I think we could get more out of it, right?
It's something that I've always liked when you see companies partnering with local colleges, because they know
it's also hard.
Oh
right?
my
because
God, it's hard.
Their way of thinking is so different, and it's a lot of work, right? But
we have the university.
If you strike gold, you strike gold.
Exactly. We have the University of South Florida locally, about 30 minutes south of us.
It
is the #2 engineering school in the state, right?
Yeah.
University of Florida beats them out, or maybe they're #3 because University of Central Florida is pretty decent. They're in the top 3, okay?
Yeah.
The effort that I have gone through to try and build a relationship there is astronomical, and my success is measured, quite frankly, as 0. And it is so upsetting because use Handshake. It's a platform for hiring people. It's terrible. Its system is terrible, but all colleges have effectively adopted it. And so what happens is I spend all this time doing jobs, internship things, and nobody sees them. So I go on campus, try to put up flyers. We get in trouble for putting up flyers. We go and try to get...
those things are a lot easier with us.
Yeah.
And what also helps is, of course, the European system of handing out grants. And in quite a lot of cases, they say that... I mean, like, money grants.
I know.
Grants, right? Yeah. Slavery's forbidden here, man. Oh, yeah. No. Anyway, so, handing out that money, and then a part of that money has to be paid by a company, either in like products or in time or in, cold hard cash. And that forces a lot of universities to actively seek out companies, right?
Right.
Because they will get nothing if they don't. And in quite a lot of cases, it's in the ballpark of like 20 to 50% of the amount of money they have to have like corporate backing for that.
Well, that would be awesome, because I know we have an intern from the UK who's actively trying to get an internship with E3D for the summer. We have people in the Netherlands that work with us, maybe would like to work for Ultimaker. Poke on. I don't know. You know, he does the nerd laps, of course, but you know, the goal for us is to always get people to where they want to go as a small business, right? I recognize I'm not the end all be all for hiring, so we want to help our people grow. If people are looking to get into working on the Ultimaker team, how might they be able to do that?
Well, send an email, right? We have an entire career page. But of course, you know, it's working on an Ultimaker team. And of course, we have a ton of other Ultimate teams. It's not just Cura, right? So it's across the board. And you know, I don't know how many job openings we have open right now, but I'm pretty sure we're always looking for people. And it's not just directly working for us, right? It can also be a collaboration, right? If it is a company that for whatever reason has, I don't know, managed to fix the non-planner slicing, I'd love to work with you. And of course, you know, I'm fully saying that is like not entirely up to me to make that decision. But at least, you know, I can poke around and be very excited, be a very excited puppy near the people who do make that decisions and say, hello, we really need to talk to these people and get something going there.
Yeah. I feel that for sure. James, I greatly appreciate the time you take because it is quite late for you right now. It's what, like 21:30 for you?
Yeah. It's not quite late. Come on.
That's right. You're a software engineer. So you only woke up 5 hours ago.
Well, a bit more, but not a lot.
I know that. Yeah. I was up late and I didn't get out of bed until a little bit later than I prefer. But is there anything else that you want to talk about, or do you want to wrap this thing up? What are you thinking?
Oh yeah. We've only talked about work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so
what's fun for you?
Yeah, so it might surprise you, but engineering.
You've got your own little side thing going on. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I have my own I don't know how to literally translate it, but my own foundation would be like it's basically like it's like a company, but I'm not allowed to make a profit with it.
Non-profit. Yep, foundation is the right word,
basically.
non-profit.
Yeah, non-profit. So you know, it's enough of a legal entity that it can hold money, but not enough that it can make profit, right? And I build all kinds of weird ass props for live action role playing events. So robots, but also computer systems, and right now I'm also working on for space LARP. I'm working on a system where people can manage factories, so that they basically have to manage so they have actual physical valves that they need to turn open, and then that will make water go from one part of the system to another part in the system, and it will change the cooling behavior.
Factorio meets Satisfactory meets real life. Got it.
Yes.
With Overcooked in there, just for the
and a bit of Overcooked in there as well, because then of course it gets to the fun part where it also reaches the physical element, right? Because it's also in a very large area, so we can actually physically put the other valve you really need to turn right now 100 meters away. So then you need to tell somebody like, quick, get over there and turn the valve. But yeah, we're also going to be running 2 entire empty epsilon simulators there, which is actually also a bit of software developed by Ultimaker employees or former Ultimaker employees, because we built that in our own time. So I built that together with David Braam.
So you're hanging out with work colleagues after work?
Yeah, so that's what we call a Thursday evening.
That would be frowned upon in the States. Geez, that's pretty cool.
No. It was actually actively promoted. It's even protected by management.
Nice.
That we're allowed to do this. And then we get access to, the workshop and all that stuff. And then, people order pizza and then start building weird stuff or, play games, things like that. We've not been able to do them for quite some time because of fucking Corona.
Right.
But yeah, I think I really love that we're doing that. Yeah. But yeah, so the entire idea is imagine a Star Trek bridge. Mm-hmm. And then with, multiple touch screens, and then how you can control the starship. And
you'll have to send me some links to that so we can put it in the description. That is really cool. I wish we had more stuff like that here in the States, because we get the people doing like live action role play, but it is the meme of LARP rather than actual physical role play. It's like people with cardboard swords hitting each
Yeah,
other.
it's what we call the buffer LARPs, because that the buffer is how they call the swords.
Mhm.
And I really have no idea what LARP culture is like in America, but in Europe it's pretty big. And it's across the board, right? So how we go as far as what we call the AAA LARPs. And those tend to be quite pricey, so they can even go up to like 600 euros a weekend. But then you basically get the entire costume, a character pre-written for you, professional catering, the level of prop building, what you get if you get a bunch of crazy engineers like me and my brother to build crazy ass engineering systems for you.
If that exists in the United States, I would love to try it out. And if for some reason I'm flying international in the next 5 years, I'd love to come check yours out too.
I know that a lot of people, at least a few of the players that are going to LARP that I'm now writing stuff for, or code writing stuff for, they actually come from the States. So it's a pretty international LARP. So
apparently they're called Tinker Nights, is what you guys
call them.
Yeah.
The Thursday evening.
I see Mariska and Terry Ann talking about it.
Yeah.
So it's like what, after work on Thursdays, y'all just kind of hang out, use the shop, if you will, to make whatever you want.
Yeah. And then I don't know, also show your stuff to people, and then get questions. So we also quite often happens if the mechanical engineer wants to do some IoT things, and of course gets horribly stuck because they don't know any coding, and then go over to a software engineer, go like, help. And then of course the other way around, because if I ever try to do anything mechanical, they probably have the same emotional response with like, what are you doing? That's completely wrong.
Now why turn it as a non-profit instead of a for-profit?
What?
Why have it as a non-profit instead of a
for-profit? But that's stuff that I do because there's no money to be made there, really. I mean, the amount of hours that I already spent on the project that I'm working on at a LARP is called Mission Together. And if I would get like a normal independent contractor paycheck, right, I would get what, like 60, 70 euros an hour? Look, fair. I already spent double that, if not more, than the budget that I got. I think even more, right? So
that's fair. That's fair. So
it's also different if it's a hobby. I would also argue, right? Because I also noticed it, because then you get to make your own choices a lot more, right? Because if somebody is really paying you and you're not a volunteer, people also tend to want more in return of it, right? So if it's my choice to do it, it's different. I also choose. And also, you can also work with smaller organizations and the other organization is also not for profit, right? So all the people who are doing all the organizing there, they're also putting in a lot of hours, and it also wouldn't feel right that I don't know, man, it doesn't feel right if you're then asking them to do all of that work non-profit. And usually organizing is a really thankless job, because it's this hygiene factor. Nobody realizes it. And then, the engineering in the prop building is a bit more, it's more in your face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's also why you call it a hygiene factor, right? You don't remember the cleanest toilet you've ever been to, but the coolest prop you've seen, you probably have a list, right? So it wouldn't feel right to do it, right?
So, like, what gets you out of bed in the morning, other than the paycheck? But what gets you out of bed to say, I want to do this every day?
Yeah, I really like building stuff, right? And I think that's every engineer has that, right? Every engineer likes building stuff. Every engineer likes showing what they build. And I like being able to make that happen, right? To also facilitate that, because also as an architect, you're moving more towards facilitating things to be. So you're more talking about technology, or you're starting to move towards the point where you're talking more about technology than actually developing technology.
Right.
And that's also because I feel that I also have a good aptitude for that. But yeah, I think a lot of that passion is also because it is for Ultimaker and it is for Cura, right? I don't think I would have the exact same emotion if I was working for, I don't know, HP or something like that, right? If it was super corporate, I would have less emotion about it. Like I would have less drive about it. if it was for a bigger company, I would have pulled the plug out of the way that we did the 5.0 way faster. Because I probably wouldn't have able. I mean, right now we didn't even have to ask the team on whether or not everyone wanted to spend the extra time on it and getting it done. Everybody just did, right? And we still shouldn't do that too often, but I think it really shows on how dedicated, I was and how dedicated the entire team was in getting this shit done. And everyone went above and beyond. No manager asked us to do overtime. We just did it.
The thing there is that's volunteer, and that is really hard to come by. Something that you don't see often here in the States. Danny, the 3D printing DM, 3D printing tabletop over on YouTube. If you aren't subscribed to Danny, go do that. But he's asking, how about tabletop RPGs? You play any tabletop?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I regularly play tabletop. That's also why I actually got the Anycubic printer.
That's why everyone gets into resin these days. What are you doing? Printing minis?
Yeah, but come on, that's the main reason, right? Because in all honesty, I don't really like printing with resin because of all the obvious reasons. Like, it's messy, and I get the gloves, and then I forget I'm wearing gloves, and then I get resin on my nose because it was itching, and it smells, and then I have to open a window, and I built an enclosure, and I did
all of our first world problems regarding the literal replicators sitting in our homes. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I get it. So, if I have to print anything, I will always default to FFF. But if you're looking at, models that you want to print, I mean, I actually have a few models here. So,
Omaha 3D Prints is asking if resin is toxic. You all should know by now that resin is toxic.
Yeah. But I mean, the level of detail that you can get, there's no way that you can get this with an FFF printer.
No.
I mean, you can get close, but yeah.
I mean, you can get close if you like removing tons of support material.
Not with that tin. I don't think you can get it that well.
Yeah, it's fair. Sharp points aren't going to work. And yeah, it's all...
And I use it for LARP as well, right? To print like rings. Like if you want like a sigil ring or something like that with a custom sigil on it, that's also really hard because the detail won't, because you want it in the wax, right? And then the detail doesn't look all that good. Yeah. Yeah.
We do a lot of jewelry. This is not casting resin, but we use Siraya Tech cast, and it is an interesting resin to say the least.
Yeah. But I do also do tabletop printing with like modular terrain, and then I don't use resin because, there's a lot of material going into it. Yep. The detail isn't as important, and then FFF printing is really cool.
So, all right, since I've been asking the wargaming communities, I was asking Danny's Discord, I'm going to be doing videos on training to use 3D scanners, and I want to go scan practical things, and I want to... Like in Danny's Discord, he doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to give away the files in Danny's Discord for free. But otherwise, we're going to charge for them, $1 or pay what you want, right? And it'll be attached to the video where we go out and scan things. For me, I want to go scan crash cars because one, it's challenging to get a crash car scanned and printed. Okay,
that is
a Chevy S10. Guy had a real bad day, and I want to release those because I've always wanted to do a post-apocalyptic run for tabletop, but with actual post-apocalyptic stuff like crashed cars.
Well, there's a project at a certain point that I was involved in, and it was called the Digital Art Heist, and the idea was that we would go into museums, and then they literally walked us through the storage of a museum. And I don't know if you've ever been in a storage of a museum, but 9 out of 10, I would recommend it. Yeah, that shit is amazing.
It's pretty cool.
So you have to imagine that there's all of these, open cabinets, like these metal ones, and then rows upon rows upon rows of objects just sitting there. And we were walking around because, the people from the museum, the curators didn't know shit about 3D printing or scanning.
Yep.
So they were like, you know what? We're just gonna walk until we see something cool, right? And you say if it's printable and scannable, and if it's not too fragile, we'll pick that and we'll go scan that. And we scanned a lot of really cool stuff. Like I scanned like a Roman statue, a tiny statuette that was like, I don't know, like was like 1800 years old or something. So I wasn't even allowed to touch it, right? So we had to place it on a platform, and then every time we wanted it in a different place, we had to ask, like,
Someone with
somebody
white
from the
gloves.
museum to come over with the white gloves, and then special training to pick it up, and then we printed those things. And it was also a really cool project to do, because the entire point is that it's digital art heist, right? We would go into the museum and then steal the art by copying it.
I will see if we can do that out here, because of course that brings up another big IP debate of, well, wait a minute, doesn't all those statues belong to the original artists? And
yeah, but in this case, it's 70 years after the death of the author, and with Roman statues, that's true.
That's fair. Totally fair.
Yeah.
But you're going to get people saying, you're a hypocrite. You did a whole video on Creality, and yet you're giving... Yeah, it's going to be a thing. Yeah. But I'm okay. I'm living for the hate comments. Living for the hate comments.
Yeah, salty tears.
I'm fine with that. Hey, all comments do is help the algorithm, baby. That's all we want. The likes, the comments, the subscribes, that's what helps the algorithm.
Yeah.
But if there's one technology you think you could have more exposure to, what would it be? Like from a hobby level?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've never done anything with, electronics, board designing. So I really want to do that at some point. I mean, my bachelor degree is technically electrical engineering. Okay. I found that out when I was signing my degree. I didn't know. So according to my degree, I'm an electrical engineer, but I'm not. I know shit about electrical engineering. Mm-hmm. Like, I barely know how to solder. So what I often do is I just slap some shit on like a breadboard, and I try to do as much as humanly possible with software, because, I know software. So I've gotten really good at getting all kinds of weird shit out of like Arduinos and Raspberry Pis. But in a lot of cases, it's probably easier to do that with electronics. So it's on my list for the longest time, and maybe I'll ever do it. But
I have attempted to do electronics, and I made the poor decision of doing it live on our YouTube channel. Not fun. Can't recommend. Don't do that. It's a mad lad move for sure, right? But yeah, I mean, KiCad is pretty good. Of course, if you're using Fusion as a design tool for CAD, Eagle is a great addition. But yeah, it's tough. And I'm also not an engineer, so being that you have a lot of this legitimate training that I don't possess, right? My training is the engineering school of hard knocks, right? Just the Sisyphus
but a lot of my engineering know-how also comes from that. Like, so all the stuff I know about hardware is because I've been with Ultimaker so long, and a lot of it is just sort of this knowledge osmosis of just hearing enough problems from your coworkers and walking around there and occasionally being involved as like, oh, you're an engineer, you know shit about it, maybe we need a different angle. And so apart from software, there I have a formal education, but any other kind, nope. All of that is also self-taught. Yeah.
John Stern says, I still want to do more with MicroPython and his Pi Pico. I would love to learn more about Pis. The robot project that we did had a Pi in it. It ran the ARGB screen for the robot's emotions. And I know so little about Pi programming that
but with a Raspberry Pi, you don't even need MicroPython. You can slap a full-fledged Python on it.
I don't know how to use it. I don't have any experience with
it. I use it a lot for my projects. Like all of my projects that I made for Larp, right, at the moment, it needs to do more than super rudimentary stuff. I slap a Raspberry Pi in it. I've got like 20 fucking Raspberry Pis at home.
Oh, damn. You're sitting on a nest egg right there, baby. I just bought 6 Pis, Pi 3Bs, for $40 each. I paid more than retail.
Well, $40, that's still cheaper than we get them.
Oh, that's fair.
Because for us, it's €40 and probably more. But yeah, no, I got a lot of them, and they're great. And
They're
actually, I based a
underrated.
lot of my architectural decisions, because I also used to be on the firmware team of the Ultimaker, on the few tricks that I learned there, because I'm not really an embedded engineer. I just worked there for a while. So all the things that I do for my projects, I just, I learned there, and then I copy that. But
Yep.
so that, the stuff that if you boot the Pi, that it automatically boots all the services that you need, because, if somebody disconnects the power, you don't want to have to manually log in and set
Yep.
up everything by hand again.
That's what our programmer did. He lives in California. I live in Florida, thousands of miles away. I said, I need
Yeah,
this to be so simple that when I
yeah,
plug it in and I log into your remote server, that it
yeah,
automatically downloads everything and starts running. And
yeah,
by golly, did he do it. It took us like 3 hours of back and forth, bug
yeah,
fixing. Hey, this doesn't work. Hey, this doesn't work. Hey, this doesn't work. I also love the fact that, so the screen draws a ton
yeah,
of power, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Its
yeah.
inrush current was pretty high, and we didn't recognize that from the beginning, so we forgot to
Uh-huh.
add in like a fade in, fade out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
playing with how bright could I get the screen.
Yeah.
100% didn't work, killed the battery packs. 50% was too dark. I said, all right, let me try 80. 80 didn't work. Let me try 70. 70 didn't work. I said, all right, I'm going to go buy ones. 69% actually worked. I said, all right, well, I guess our product's a meme. We'll go with it. 69% it is.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Programming is one of those skills that I wish I picked up. Is there a skill that you wish you had that you don't?
Oh, yes, the ability to plan. I am really rubbish at that.
ADHD for the win.
Yes, it's well, I mean, it's a hard choice, or object permanence. I don't have that, so I will lose everything everywhere
That's ADHD.
all the time.
Yeah.
So I personally believe that people who can leave something somewhere and then realize where it is, that's a goddamn superpower to me.
So what you're saying we need to do is design some sort of low energy Bluetooth device with at least 3
Or
receivers.
indoor RFID. You can also do it with RFID, right?
Well, I want to be able to triangulate the signal to figure out.
Yeah, you can do that with RFID.
Can you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have
Done.
indoor positioning RFID based.
This is what I want, and I want to put it on everything that I own, especially things like my wallet. My keys have a keyboard. My keys are always in the keyboard, right?
Yeah,
My
yeah,
wallet,
yeah.
my cameras.
No, I want it. No,
that kind of shit.
I want it for everything. I want it for every single tool that I have. Like
my
those
flush
fuckers.
cutters. My flush cutters. Do you know how many pairs of flush cutters I own? At least double that I'm aware of.
That's actually my strategy for a lot of those things. I'll just buy 20 pieces, right? Because I know they will eventually spread all across the house, and I will lose them. That's a guarantee. I've given up on that notion. But what will happen is that if there's enough in the house, then it doesn't really matter where I start looking. Then I only need to spend like 10 minutes in a random room, and I'm guaranteed to find at least one.
Yeah,
right.
But how
So
long
that's my current strategy.
That journey to find it though takes longer than it might be just to be like, all right, screw it, I'm gonna figure out a way around it. Like I could not. I was trying to build a custom cable yesterday.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't measure that one of them was a 2.5 millimeter pin and the other one was a 2.1. I figured the pins were the same size. Of course, they weren't. I could not find my wire strippers for the life of me. So I just grabbed a pocket knife and I stripped it with a pocket knife.
Yeah, that's generally also what I do. And then I cut myself, and then I regret every single decision that led to this point where I thought, oh, but this is faster.
And then it's, where are the Band-Aids? Shit. All right, where are the paper towels? What about some duct tape? Damn it, where's the duct tape?
Oh, well, or the, what's it called? That super fast drying glue that also works.
Super glue.
Super glue. Yeah, I use that as well.
Cyanoacrylate. Yeah, for those that don't know, a brand new, do not use a used tube, but a new tube of super glue is actually okay for closing wounds. It is used.
If it's small ones.
Yeah, don't use it for big wounds. But yeah, like one of my favorite things to do prior to getting injured, I got injured in April of 2020, so right at the height of the pandemic, was go kayaking. And I got a pretty nasty gash one day, and that's when I learned, all right, we're going to start carrying a med kit. That med kit now includes super glue to deal with, any potential cuts, scrapes, and all that. There's a sewing kit in there if we do need to do some sutures, and a lighter to sterilize the needle should you need to do it. But the
Yeah,
hope is
yeah,
we don't
yeah,
have to
yeah.
go down that field, because that field is pretty nasty.
Yeah, but it's better to have it and not need it, right?
Yeah. Omaha 3D Print says it's new skin or similar brands are just super glue. Anyways, yes, and you can generally buy the new skin at your local dollar store. At least here in the States. So you can get it pretty cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would love, God, there's your $1 million product right there. A cheap integratable RFID system where the RFID
Yeah.
tags you place on things are pennies.
I know they use it for warehousing, so
but that's where they can afford it to be hundreds of dollars. They can afford
no,
a
but
$200,000 system.
well, that's true. But if I would have to pay €1,000, right, to wire this into my house, right, and then if like per item it was like 10 cents,
Done.
That's I would have. That's done, right? I mean, that would save me so much time per year.
If someone said for $1,000 I can get you a kit and then it's 10 cents a label, I will ask, where do I give you my credit card information now?
Yeah.
There you go. If you are in the comments and you love to make things and you think that's a project you want to take on, you've got 2 buyers right here, and I'm sure everybody else in the damn comments is going to feel exactly the
if
same.
we post this in the ADHD communities, man, you're going to sell so much. You're going to be not Jeff Bezos rich, but you're going to be rich. Okay.
Yeah, you'll have fuck you money, which is all we ever really go for, right?
Yeah. Like,
that's that is
and
the goal.
it would only have to really work indoors as well, right?
Omaha 3D Print says AirTags. It doesn't work for those of us that are Android. It also doesn't work because it's $30 an AirTag.
Yeah,
and
that's I'm not going to put an AirTag on these fuckers, right? On a screwdriver.
It needs to be a sticker, and I want it on every screwdriver that I own.
Yeah. So what I want a sticker, and I need to be able to scan the sticker, and then no, because Bluetooth can run out of power. I need something that won't run out of power, or is it charged remotely? It needs to be passive.
It needs to be passive. Yeah. And have an antenna.
I need a sticker with like a barcode, and then I can scan it on my phone and then put a label on it. So I say like, this is my blast screwdriver. And then I can ask my Google Home basically, or any IoT system, hello, I am looking for my flush cutters. Where are they? And then he goes, well, you've got one in that room, one in that room, and one in that room.
There are 6 scattered across your living room. Good luck finding them.
Well, and then also, I don't know, maybe saying something like in the left corner of that room, because that would already save so much, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna dig through the right corner or anything like that. Yeah, that's the
dream. That's the dream.
Wait, you do software? I'm pretty decent on the hardware side.
Yeah, it's that my keyboard is so loud, because otherwise I would have already started Googling.
Oh, all right. We should look for this off, and if it's not, is this how we work together? Is this what we're gonna do?
Yeah, apparently.
Because I'll do it. I don't care. A buddy of mine hilariously did a study similar to this for tracking Alzheimer's progression in patients. Okay. He used Bluetooth Low Energy and put it in the pockets of all the Alzheimer's patients and utilized Bluetooth triangulation. And based on how straight of a line they could walk down a narrow hallway, would give him a pretty decent idea of how far progressed they were with Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that blows my mind. This was done years ago, because
but I've also seen it with security, where they would even use it for walking patterns and then for access cards. Yep. So if then somebody steals the access card and then their walking patterns change, you can sound an alarm saying like, oh, but somebody probably stole the access card because their walking, their gait is different or something.
I just look at the Flipper Zero and say that is every tool that I need for this to make all of this work.
Yeah. Or with glasses. Yeah, John has a great point. Like, I mean, my glasses, God, yes. Do you know how often I've lost them? I've actually lost glasses, and these are actually my new pair. And then, of course, months after that I got them, then I found them buried in some sort of box where they accidentally fell in.
It's sunglasses.
Yes, I need to stay alive. Radioactive won't work. And I'm pretty sure that radioactive won't help me distinguish between different objects, right?
No, you'll get too much background radiation unless you're really, really close to it. Unless it's a pretty significant source, like a cobalt source. But we don't want gamma rays because
Well,
cobalt's
you could do it with alpha rays, right? Those are you won't only die of them if you eat them. Ask every enemy of Russia, but
I mean, I've got clocks that are radioactive. They've got radium on the on the hands, but the glass is all leaded anyway, so nothing gets through it. And that's alpha particle anyway, so unless you've got like an open wound that you're putting right next to it, it's pretty much fine.
Yeah.
That would God, that's a good product. I would love something that could do asset tracking for resin 3D printing, so I can know based on like how much resin I have in stock without having to weigh my bottles. But that's also me being lazy.
Yeah.
So there's that.
But you could do that in an Excel sheet, right?
I mean, I could, but that requires me to do extra work.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
A system to automatically take your build plates, let them drip dry for an extended amount of time, and then put them into a wash and cure station. Formlabs has a system that uses a cobot to do this. That would be good. Yeah. I would
just
love...
even just normal FFF printers, like also like the push clear. I mean, the Quinley guys do that.
Yep.
Or guy, I think it's just one guy.
It's a few of them. I've been trying to convince them to come on the podcast, but they do lots of live streams on it, but no offense to them, but they are the traditional engineer. They're not the most charismatic individuals, and they're worried that they're not going to be able to display the passion that they have for it adequately. And I said, that's totally fine. Take your time. When you're ready, I'll schedule you guys.
I've never seen engineers unable to display passion. It's not the displaying the passion. That's often quite clear. It might not be entirely clear why other people should be passionate about it.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, it's often abundantly clear that they're passionate about it, right?
Well, and with what they're doing and that photogrammetry system of utilizing frames from video to create.
Oh yeah, but that's pretty old already. That's pretty.
They've
as a
done
technology,
it pretty well.
Yeah. But I mean,
photogrammetry technology is old, but the way that they're doing it, where they need 15 seconds of video of a static object and they can build a 3D model from it.
Oh, that
is
old.
Pretty new.
No,
really.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if Remco is still in the stream, but that was his last job actually. From images, right? He did it with some sort of Google-like car, and then from those videos. But from streams, it's already been done for quite some time. I mean, it's still super cool, right? And I don't want to shit on their product because, like, there's building it in the first place and then putting it in a product, and those two are fundamentally different, right? Making a good product out of a bit of technology, like that's super hard, and it's also a different hard than making the algorithm in the first place.
It's fair,
right?
Yeah, this is where like my 2 business degrees failed me, because there's so much of this industry that I wish I knew more of, but because I fundamentally lack the basis of something that is required to understand the top end of it, it becomes complicated for me to be able to compete and be able to communicate at a level that is understanding to all parties involved. Yeah, it is. And that's why I love this industry, because all right, I don't have, an ME or an EE or any engineering degree for that matter, but I'm still a maker, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. I have, myself and my team have done amazing things in this industry. We've quite literally worked with everyone from Snoop Dogg to the Smithsonian. And that kind of thing is cool. The Smithsonian is always the best client, period. They give me a government credit card with no limit and say print as much as you want. We'll tell you when to stop. Favorite client.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, there is so much in this industry that I think that we've barely scratched the surface of. And that's why I'm glad that, companies like Ultimaker are putting money into Cura, knowing that it is a loss leader, but they're being able to further our desire to do stuff like build a passive RFID system to tell us where we left our shit.
yeah, and it's also, that's also what I enjoy about working in this industry, right? So I got to learn a whole bunch of things that I normally wouldn't, right? Because I could have been a software engineer and building pure software systems, or, and by pure software system, I mean like, a system that's just software, right? Where there's no real mechanical or physical part attached to it. And I had to come back to the question you asked me near the beginning, like, so why Ultimaker, why 3D printing? It's because it's not just pure software, right? It's where all of the cool stuff meets. And and back then I only, barely or occasionally understood software. Right now, I'm at a point where I understand software very well and I understand all the other things okay. And I would not have ever been at that point if I had not made that sort of choice in my life at a certain point to Google a piece of paper stuck to a wall that said Ultimaker that way. And I'm happy for that decision. Yeah.
I will say that this also points to companies investing in their staff, right? Hi, pro tip for all you startups out there. Give a shit about your staff. Yes, they are all technically replaceable, but do you want to go through the effort? Invest in them. Work with them. Do a Thursday maker night where they get together on, you're not paying them to be there, but they're working in your lab.
Look,
with your resources to make shit.
And pizza is cheaper than replacing them.
I mean, pizza, beer, and chicken is generally a decent way to pay people when they're not on your payroll.
Yeah, or if they are on your payroll, right? I mean, it's also because it shows them that you care enough about it, and it's generally cheap. Like morale is really important, and also you should always train your people in such a way that they can work everywhere and treat them so that they don't want to.
Bingo, right there. Yeah, I wish I could train a lot of our staff better, but the people that we bring on specifically know more than I do about certain subjects. So if it's anything, they're the ones teaching me and not the other way around.
You could train them in the business side of things, right? Because over the years, I've picked up quite a lot of things, also especially for an engineer, about how to think about a business and how to be successful in a business. And then we're talking about, finances and strategy and all that extra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that also makes me a better engineer just by knowing it, right? And it also makes me a better software architect as well. And I don't have to be good at it, but some knowledge about it, that's good. You don't want to be specialized in one thing and one thing only, right? I personally don't think that's generally a good idea. You want a more broader, sense of things, and then have a good specialization, but also, know the stuff around it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I totally agree here, James. I appreciate your time. I do. I have a meeting coming up here in a few minutes, so we do have to call it. But we definitely got to do this more. Maybe if we do go forward and we build this product, maybe we build it. Maybe we do it fully open source and do it live. That might be fun to hate ourselves. But anyways, guys, this has been our episode of Making Awesome Podcast with Jaime Van Kessel. Please, please, please take a look at the brand new Cura. Take a look at all the links in the description. James, send me all the links to your 501c3 or your nonprofit. I want to pitch the crap out of it to people. And if you guys are interested in learning more about it, you can do so down there. Go ahead, try out the brand new Cura beta. Let us know what you like about Arachne or Arcane if you're one of the 44% of people that decided they liked my crappy, I didn't fully read the term pronunciation of it. But that's all we have for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.